All right, good evening and welcome to our parent chat. Thanks for joining us, and lots of great questions came in through the survey ahead of time, and I've categorized them as best we can, and we're going to jump in and cover those shortly. But I'm joined by a couple colleagues and want to first give them a chance to introduce themselves. And first, I should say, for those of you I haven't met yet, my name is Chad Eickhoff, and I do serve as Director of Admissions here at NAU. We have Matt Tantow joining us for the first time for a parent chat. So if you can introduce yourself and let us know what your office does as well too.
Yeah, thanks, Chad. My name is Matt Tantow. I'm the Associate Vice President for Enrollment and Student Services. And our office here on the Flagstaff campus is the Student Service Center. And we actually provide one-stop services for students and parents and families regarding financial aid, admissions questions, student account questions, and much more actually. And we're right centrally located on campus by the bookstore. We also have, if your student or has received a phone call from NAU, most likely that came from our team as well. We have a call center full of students, current students, who reach out and congratulate our new and newly admitted students, as well as our admitted students and are there to help them through the sort of next steps admissions process. So we're here to support you all the way through, and we're glad you're joining us tonight.
Then Alicia, you met her last time, but I'll have you introduce yourself again.
Hi, everyone. If I haven't met you yet, my name is Alicia Stewart, and I serve as the Associate Vice President of Campus Operations and University Housing. So I'm happy to be joining tonight to answer any housing related questions. We're excited to get our processes rolling for the next steps, and we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Great. So the questions that came in ahead of time from the survey, I've organized them into some different categories, and I'll give you a quick overview of kind of the order we plan to attack those categories. So if you're watching this later and want to skip ahead, first category that and theme that kind of came out was, are we going to be in person? Are we going to be remote for fall? We got one dining question, so we'll be sure food's important. We'll touch on that one. A bunch of housing questions, quite a few questions that came in that I kind of labeled as advising questions or getting course schedules. And then certainly financial aid and finances is another category. And then visiting campus, or if you want to come see campus, what that looks like now. So those are kind of the categories of questions that came in ahead of time through that survey. And we're going to plan to tackle those in that order. So Matt, I'm going to throw the kind of in that first category of the in-person or remote piece to you. Like what are the plans for fall? Are we going to be in person for fall? What does that look like?
Yeah, that's a great question, Chad. As everyone knows, for a lot of higher education institutions in the last year, it's been a very fluid situation. We've had a lot of programs and courses in a remote setting. Our hope for fall 21 is to have a majority of our courses being offered in person. And so that is really what we're shooting for and what we're hoping for. As you know, this is a fluid situation. It sort of was the term in the last year that we've talked about. And so as we move through the spring semester and the summertime, NAU will continue to evaluate the situation and make decisions and make sure we can communicate them. But the goal right now is we do want to have a majority of our courses in person for fall 21, and we will most likely be trying to offer some alternative options via online or remote, but really focusing on a majority of courses being in person for fall 21.
Historically, looking at this last fall semester and spring semester, we did utilize what we refer to as Nau Flex, so the ability to join in synchronously with the class while it was taught there as well. But again, yeah, primarily that in-person piece. Then I guess with that, then living on campus, that's the plan for fall as well too. We do have folks living on campus all year. They have been here on campus, and certainly looking forward to welcoming students to live on campus next fall as well. Matt, I don't know if you want to kind of talk about the mix of remote versus in-person, what it's looking like currently here on campus.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we in last fall and for spring, we've been offering quite a few of our courses, about somewhere between 60 to 75% of our courses with an NAU Flex option. And as Chad mentioned, that's this great option because of technology now that we're able to provide synchronous learning. So a student can actually attend their regularly scheduled course time, but do it through their computer using Zoom, right? And so we've been able to really provide then a fully who choose maybe not to be in person or need to be remote for a period of time, and they can still continue to be participating in their class. And so really, like I said, around 60 to 75% of courses offered either this synchronous remote option, or we had the traditional asynchronous online option as well. And we had about 25% or so of courses that were still requiring some component of in-person. And so, as I sort of mentioned, currently we're sort of at a 75-25 split. And then, but I do want to clarify, for those 75% of classes that were, offered as had a nice NAU Flex component, we also offered the in-person piece with those courses. And so, in terms of students showing up, I think we had a good number, 8,000 to 9,000 students still participating in person in their NAU Flex course. And so, we still had that in-person component, but also the flexibility that if you needed to, you could be remote. So in terms of that flexibility, about 75% of courses in the spring. I think, again, as we head into fall 21, we hope to increase that in-person component, because we know being on the Flagstaff campus, in addition to classes, but all the other activities really creates a great experience. But we will also, utilize NAU Flex where we can to provide some flexibility throughout the fall 21 semester as well.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, so definitely flexible. We wanted to give students options for what they felt comfortable with. The other question I kind of threw in this in-person versus remote or virtual category was a question that came in around orientation and whether we would be having in-person orientation or virtual this summer. And I want to say I happened to be in a meeting this morning. We met for over an hour talking through that experience, and our orientation team has been doing a great job coming up with a virtual experience for our students in the summer ahead. And there's going to be a few different components to that, and we look forward to rolling that out to all of you in the months ahead here. But there's going to be kind of a module type piece where students are working through these modules, and we'll have a parent option as well for students or for parents and families to walk through on that. But we're going to have a lot of other live content too. So parents, things like these parent chats. Last year, we stood up a show, I would call it, Forecast from Flagstaff, where we were giving updates, and it was bi-weekly. And we plan to do that again this summer. Parents seem to enjoy that, families seem to enjoy that as a way to get connected to campus. And we do know an important part of a typical in-person orientation experience is meeting other students, meeting current students and ambassadors. And this summer, we're going to be leaning into that more and offering more opportunities within small groups for your students to be able to meet with our ambassadors and other students. So every student is going to be assigned a few different dates and times throughout the summer to come into these small group opportunities. And if for some reason those assigned times we give don't work, we'll certainly work with students to find other options for them to jump into those sessions. But we're going to actually do the initial kind of assigning of times for those live small breakout groups that your students participate in. But in mid-May is when we're going to send out a communication. So all students that have accepted their offer prior to May or that point in time, we're going to auto enroll you and sign you up for these different sessions. And then mid-May, we'll send out an email that will break down all the kind of optional content, how to access those modules, and then also those few different times where your student can go to those smaller breakout sessions throughout the summer. So trying to, simulate the in-person as much as possible in terms of those student and human connections, and making sure that we're getting essential info out. So more to come on that, but hopefully that kind of at least gives you a sense of what summer is going to look like, and it will be a virtual experience for students for orientation. So we had the one dining question that came in ahead of time, and I can tackle that. There was a question around, there's a 19 meals per week plan and then an unlimited meals per week plan. And the person that asked the question noticed that they were priced the same and figured, what's the catch? Unlimited versus 19. So the difference there is that we have what we call transfer specials, where you can use your meal swipes. So one of those 19 meals, you could go to Subway, for instance, and use what we call a meal transfer and get a sandwich, get a drink, get a side for one of those meals. So the meal plans, that the 10, the 14, or the 19 meals a week plans, those allow for the transfers, whereas the unlimited meal plan does not allow for those transfer specials. Those meals are just for all you care to eat dining facility. So a little bit less flexibility there in terms of those different retail dining options. You would just be using that unlimited meal plan within the all you care to eat dining facilities, which we got one on Central Campus and then one on South Campus that students can utilize. Both of those plans do come with an allotment of dining dollars, which you can use at retail facilities. So maybe you're just getting a cup of coffee or a drink or something like that. You could utilize those dining dollars to make that happen. So hopefully that kind of clears up some of the difference in reasoning for why those are priced the same. I do always like to mention within the first 2 weeks of the semester, students can make changes to their meal plan. So maybe they think they want the 19 meal a week plan and then realize that's actually more than they need, or maybe they started with the 10 and realized that wasn't enough. Within those first couple of weeks, you can make adjustments to those meal plans. All right, so that wraps up our one question, that dining section. We're gonna jump into housing, which we're gonna throw these questions all Alicia's direction. But essentially, kind of give us an update on the latest timeline of room selection, that process. What does that look like for students?
Yeah, I know it's an exciting time and people are starting to shift gears and look forward to the fall. So we've been working hard on getting the housing portal ready to go, and next steps will be coming up very soon. So next week, we'll be sending out an email to all freshmen who have already applied to let them know that the next steps are opening. So right now, if you're a student or if you're a parent of a student, they can log back into the housing portal. You can work on your roommate questionnaire, which is answering some questions. You can work on your roommate bio. So in terms of just doing a little bio of yourself, that kind of helps give a little bit more flair than just answering the questions. That part is open now. They can log back in. Next week, we'll send out the email once it's time to start searching for roommates. You can do that. It's an optional thing. You don't have to use that, but you can certainly go in, browse by overall best matched. If you want specific questions that you want to search on, you can do that. Or if you know a specific person, you can search that way. I know some questions have come in about related to COVID and living with someone who you want to, and they might not be in your residential college. So we are making some updates heading into next fall, just because we're still in the pandemic and kind of planning. We are still going to allow some flexibility there. So while we still have the residential colleges noted, and there's still a chart, you can see where the residential colleges are located. We encourage you to live in your residential college. However, we will allow flexibility. So if you are wanting to room with someone specific who's not in your residential college, you will be able to do that. Or say if you want to live in a single buyout, which means, a typical double room, you can buy out the other space for not a double price. You pay you're not paying for both bed spaces, you're not paying double, but you do pay a little bit more for that other bed space. The furniture does stay in the room. So we'll be adding single buyout options into room selection. So when you go in and when it's time to do room selection, you can go in and select either a double room or a single buyout from the halls that you're looking at. So we're going to include more details in that mailer. So keep an eye out at your NAU email address next week for that mailer. And then we'll begin room selection mid-March. So somewhere around about March 15th, we'll start rolling room selection appointments by date of housing application. So if you, the earlier you apply, the earlier your room selection time is. You want to make sure that you've gotten your priority enrollment done in the meantime. So that's something you can work on in the next few weeks if you haven't yet done that. But we will outline each of those steps as they open. We'll send out emails to let you know that that is available to do.
So roommates are certainly a question and something people are excited about, nervous about, a little bit of both probably.
Yep.
And there was a question that came in, like, do we match roommates on common interests? Do you want to talk a little bit about what that process will look like?
Yeah, so when you go in to do roommate search, again, so you're going to do first the roommate questionnaire. Your student will do the roommate questionnaire. And please do make sure that your student does that. Don't do that for them, because as much as you love your student and know that they are fully angels and all, just they're the ones that are going to be living in the room. So it's important that they fill it out from their standpoint. So I would encourage you, and as a parent of 2 college students or former college students, it's important that you let them do that in their own space. So don't hover. You can have them show you the questions so you know what they're filling out, so you have a sense, but then maybe let them do it in peace. That's my parent tip for the day. But anyways, you can, there's about 11 questions on typical things that we see in terms of roommate relationships. So sleep habits, study habits, how you view the room, use. You want to be able to have guests over, you want more of a, quiet study area, like those kind of things. So you'll answer that roommate questionnaire, and then the system uses those questions to show you. So if it's browse overall best match, they'll kind of show you, your top 10 at a time. And you can see then, here's the list. You can click in and see how they answered all the questions. You can read their bio, so you get a little bit more information. Say you're someone who really likes your room very neat and you want to make sure that you live with someone else who's going to kind of be tidy. You can search on that specific question and find your top matches based on how you answer that question. Or again, if you know someone specific, it allows you to search for that person, and you just have to fill in some details. And if they've already applied for housing as well, you'll be able to see that way. So one other thing about roommates, I know this might come up with Honors College. So if you've been accepted into Honors, you'll be able to, once you get to room selection, be able to select a room in Honors. Typically, we just have Honors students select other Honors students as roommates in their semi-suites. We are, again, allowing some flexibility. So if you know someone you want to live with who's not in the Honors college, we will allow you to pull that roommate in as well this year. So just know that as well. But if you are in the Honors College, you will live in the Honors College residential building. So.
Can you talk a little bit about Greek life, so sororities, fraternities, and what housing looks like for them?
Yeah, so there's a variety of groups who are on campus, different sororities and fraternities. And depending on the actual organization, some of them have clusters in Mountain View Hall, which is one of our suite style upper division halls. And it ranges depending on the chapter. Some have off-campus housing. We don't have like a typical, what you would think of a Greek row at some universities where you have, like a street with large chapter, houses down the road. So it looks a little bit different in Flagstaff. There's some that usually live in clusters in some of the apartment communities. So it just kind of varies by chapter, but there is a presence in Mountain View Hall. And so if you join a chapter, they'll walk through, what your housing options are living with the chapter beyond your freshman year.
So one of the questions that came in had to do with kind of the no visitor policy that was going on because of COVID. And if you could kind of talk a little bit about maybe what's in place right now to make folks safe, and when we may have some more answers about what fall will look like and the ability to communicate that out.
Yes, and I wish I had the crystal ball. I wish we weren't in a pandemic. But while in the pandemic and right now, as many really, and actually all my colleagues across the country, I don't know any halls that have really not adjusted their guest policy, but we did that to just be extra safe, that really for during this time, in the residence hall. All the residence halls are locked 24/7, and you use your JAX card to enter that. And so if you're in room, if you're assigned to that hall, you'll have automatic card access. But if you're not assigned to that hall, you're not able just to walk in. We're asking all students to limit their guests to just those students who also live in the hall. Again, just to limit that exposure to the virus and mitigate kind of the spread of the virus. So I know a question comes in about like, oh, but I want to go see my student. What happens then? So don't worry, like at least during move-in, as we head into the fall, regardless of what ends up happening with the guest policy, we're going to have to see what's happening with the virus and the spread at that time. So we'll make that decision closer to the fall to use current data. But minimally, if we still have any kind of restrictions in the guest policy during move-in, we do allow, like this last fall, we allowed students to have 2 guest move-in helpers. We asked them a series of questions in terms of make sure that they're not symptomatic and not running a fever and that kind of thing, but they were allowed to assist their student to move in. So we will have that in place again, so you can minimally help them get moved in, and then we'll make a decision about the academic year as we get closer.
Great. I think that hit on most of the housing ones that came in ahead of time and the main themes there. Shifting gears a little bit to, I guess, what I deem the category of advising or, class schedules and that, and I'll try to answer some of those questions that came in ahead of time there. One of the first ones was, how do first-year students sign up for classes? Like, what does that look like? And the first thing I'd say is that once the student has accepted their offer, so paid their enrollment deposit, it's going to, within 24 to 48 hours, they're going to have the option to be able to start doing some of those other next steps, one of which being applying for housing, which we just talked about housing a bit. Another one being completing priority enrollment, PE, not physical education. You'll hear the acronym PE out there, which is the priority enrollment profile, which starts that communication with your academic advisor in terms of confirming what major you want to study. Maybe you've changed your mind since you initially applied to NAU. Maybe you're bringing in some other credit kind of thing, and that ability to be able to communicate that, maybe some AP coursework you had taken. So that communication will be in priority enrollment. And then March 8th, or give or take a couple days, we'll start doing what we call bulk enrollment, where based upon those academic majors, we'll start enrolling students into classes that are needed for that. And depending upon your major and how kind of set that different schedule is, your student might have a lot of courses they're bulk enrolled in, or very few that they're bulk enrolled in. And then Gateway Advising will start working with students in terms of individual advising appointments. What typically would have taken place in an in-person orientation is done virtually. And we will be in the month of May, is really kind of May 1st, maybe a bit before, is when those one-on-one appointments with the advisor will start taking place. Students within their Louis account can see their advisors, the name of their advisor. So if they do have questions, they can certainly start reaching out earlier than that. But that's kind of gives you a sense of what that process looks like. And step one, and really the one thing they need to do right now, if they have accepted their offer, is completing priority enrollment. And there will be additional communications then coming from our Gateway Student Success Center in terms of individual advising appointments that will follow later. One of the questions that came in had to do with the student had already taken 31 credit hours from dual enrollment. So already it's coming in with 31 college credits. So awesome, kudos to you and your student for that. And wondering, do they get advised with first year students? Do they go to the college to get advised? What does that look like? And I did have the opportunity to talk to Monica Bai, the director of our Gateway Student Success Center this afternoon. And she just wanted to assure us they work with students with dual enrollment all the time, really familiar with that. There's a lot of stuff that a first year new student needs to know, and their advisors within the Gateway Student Success Center are really equipped to do so. So they would still be the ones working with them. However, if there's the need to connect with the college advisor that typically start advising students after that first year, they've got those connections and would be working with that advisor to make sure that they take the right classes. But they would be going through the Gateway Student Success Center for that. One question that came in through the survey was, are parents notified before a change of academic major? I guess the short answer there is no, that your student is the one responsible for that. And certainly, obviously, hopefully you can be asking those questions, they'll communicate that with you. But yeah, being adults and kind of being the owners of their college process, there wouldn't be a notification that would go to parents if a student were to change their academic major. One of the questions that came in was around the nursing program and being kind of unclear if it was pre-nursing or direct nursing program, and wanted us to clear that up a little bit. If they are an incoming first-year student, likely what was on that was pre-nursing. Our first-year students typically start in pre-nursing, and then the typical schedule, if you're on track and taking the courses that they set out for, would be in that third semester. So you would apply for the nursing program. So let's say you're starting this fall, you would take your coursework this fall, next spring, and then the following fall is when typically you would apply to be in the nursing program. It's kind of the timeline that tends to happen there. There was a question that came in around IGP, our Interdisciplinary Global Program, and asking how and when their daughter can apply for that. And for those of you that don't know what IGP, the Interdisciplinary Global Program is, I'll give a super quick overview of that. It's an awesome program where students can end up getting 2 degrees within a 5-year span, and one of those years is spent abroad. So the example I like to throw out is maybe a Spanish degree and a business degree, and you spend a year abroad in Spain, immersing yourself in the culture and in the language. And NAU actually ranks 7th in the country in terms of total number of students doing a year-long study abroad opportunity. And a big part of that is the IGP program and how many students participate in that. So certainly check out that website and learn more about that if that kind of piques your interest. But the application is open now, and students can be applying for that. And certainly that might be something, if they are completing priority enrollment, they may want to mention in their priority enrollment profile that, hey, I'm interested in doing the Interdisciplinary Global Program, just so that academic advisor can make sure that the student is on the right track to do so. And I think there was one more question that was in that advising section that came in ahead of time. Yes, how do we address students that are undeclared, coming in, undecided? We call them exploratory here at NAU. So they haven't chosen what major they want to study yet. And what does that look like? It's a combination of that conversation with the advisor, picking the right classes to help the student decide what might be the right fit. Another great option could be our NAU 100 course. It's a 1-credit course, and it's a great kind of peer group that you'd be in with other first-year students and exploring different possible majors within that. And like typically, she gave me the kind of these rough numbers that about 400 students, first-year students, start as exploratory at the beginning of their first year. And typically it's down to 50 students or so by the second semester. So certainly we're helping students try to find that. And also we just want to normalize changing majors. It's really common to change majors, even students that come in and think they're set and started with something, very common to change their majors. And got a colleague that has an office right by mine that's an NAU alum, and she changed her major, I think it was 4 times, 5 times, and ended up graduating 4 years still. So certainly common for students to do so. All right, next category I want to jump into is kind of around financial aid and cost. I'm going to be throwing a lot of these your way, Matt. So questions around scholarships and if a student were to defer coming here. So rather than start this fall, and there's been questions about maybe religious missions or just taking a year off. What does that look like if they wanted to wait a year to start?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Thank you. Yeah, so typically we will work with students if they want to take a year off. A gap year, I think, is the term out there typically that's used. And so we can work with students on that to take a year off, and that scholarship can stay active or available for them. So that's really important, but it's important that you let us know that and you notify us that you are your intent is to return either a semester later, or I shouldn't say return, but start either a semester later or maybe a year later. And so you want to just make sure you're in contact with your admissions officer, and we can make sure that we notify, or you can give us a call at the service center or the 800 the admissions line. And we can definitely help you out to make sure that information is documented, so we have that on file. But we do understand students, especially in the current situation, are looking at some flexibility about starting and when they're going to start. And so we're more than happy to work with students.
A question around work study, which obviously a lot of our students have campus jobs, and actually just saw the number today. Last year at this time, so during normal non-COVID times, at least about 3,500 students with on-campus jobs. And some of those are work study, meaning you qualified for it from the FAFSA, and some are just student wage jobs being paid out of the department. Matt, how would a student maybe that qualified for work study, how would they go about finding a job?
Yeah, that's another great question. And so how work study in terms of financial aid works, right? It's not necessarily an award that gets dispersed like other financial aid awards. It actually gets dispersed to the student through a paycheck. And so a student has to have a job that is, and on campus, we have plenty of jobs on campus available that where a federal work study student can be hired, can apply and be hired. And then they would receive their federal work study through a paycheck every 2 weeks, just like a normal paycheck, right? And so students that have federal work study as part of their award package, you can, as you've been packaged, you'll be able to see that in your either in your letter or online through Louie, and you'll see if you've been awarded federal work study. If you have, you can go to Handshake, which is our job search tool. It's really quite simple. It's nau.edu. Handshake. I'm going to just double check it right here. And you can go to our career site there and look for all the positions that are available for students. And those will be posted now throughout the summer, and students can apply for those positions. And on Handshake, it will show you if the position is federal work study eligible. Most, if not all of our positions on the NAU campus are work study eligible. And so, and in some cases, only work study eligible students are able to apply for some positions based on funding. And so really, we have quite a few jobs on campus, and those jobs sometimes might even get, if students don't see any openings over the summer, don't worry. Positions open up throughout the fall semester all the time as well. So we always have a little bit of turnover, and we always have positions posting throughout the fall semester as well.
And I always encourage students, if they are looking for a job, that on-campus jobs are a great option, because obviously your employer understands you're a student first, right? And they're going to work with you when it's finals week or you've got a busier week. So certainly that's a good option. There's lots of jobs out in the Flagstaff community, but that flexibility and understanding you're a student first is certainly a benefit of an on-campus job. Can you talk, Matt, a little bit about timing of if they've completed a FAFSA? That was one of the questions that came in. When they would expect to hear about, what their aid package looks like?
Yeah, so right now, we package typically, I want to say typically once a week right now, if not twice a week. And so really, when you file your FAFSA, it will take a little bit of time for the FAFSA information to get to the university. So it's really important when you file your FAFSA to make sure you have that NAU school code in there. And so that information is sent to the university. And so once that happens, I usually say about 2 weeks for us to review that and then be able to award 2 to 3 weeks, I would say, to get your FAFSA and get your award letter out to you. And that you'll not only receive a hard copy letter, you'll also receive a email as well that you've had a change in your financial aid award. So you'll be able to look that up. But what's really important is that if you are flagged for verification, which is a process in which the federal government flags your account and you have to provide additional documentation, you will be emailed about that, and it will be in your to-do list in Louis. And so if you do get flagged for verification, you want to make sure you complete those next steps, because you will not be packaged until that verification is completed. So that's really important. But right now, if you submit your FAFSA, you'll definitely get an award letter within about a 2 to 3 week time frame.
And I think you made a kind of important point there as far as emails, checking emails, and Alicia mentioned it too, you email. So here's my every parent chat. When I think of it, I want to make that plug. Make sure your students are checking their NAU email address. There's several offices on campus that just communicate with the students' NAU email address. So financial aid, housing, honors, if they applied for the honors college and are waiting on a decision there, that's going to come to their NAU email address as well. And if your student maybe isn't in the habit of checking that often, but they've got another address they check often, they could set up forwarding to get that going to their other address to make sure they're getting all those communications as they come in. I think kind of the last question in that financial aid or finances side of things, and I guess student accounts in general, is there a parent portal or login? And you know, maybe if a parent wants some access to be able to see some stuff, what can a student do and what steps can they take to make that happen?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one, I just want to throw out to everyone that more information will be coming out about orientation, but over the summer, we will be doing, as part of orientation, some really great financial aid student account sessions. That will be part of that through the months of June and July. So I'll just sort of throw that out there, that we'll be able to sort of do more of a deep dive into those type of topics throughout the summer. I know more information is going to be coming about orientation, and that information will be included, but it's a great opportunity and well-timed to talk about some of those things. With that said, as Chad said, if a parent wants to have access to the student's account, what we would first highly recommend that all students do is make sure if they complete a FERPA release. And so, throughout the spring and summer, we'll work with incoming parents and share information. But once the start of the fall semester starts and your student starts their courses, something called the Family Educational Rights and Practices, we are not allowed to share specific information about your student's educational record unless there's a release on file. And so something I would highly recommend is talking with your student, talking together and getting that release on file so we can share information with the parent. Because if not, once we get around August 23rd, we won't be able to do that any longer. And then as Chat, in terms of a portal, we do have our TouchNet system, and your student can actually provide you authorized user access to be able to go in, look at account balance, as well as make a payment. And so that's available as well online. And so your student would actually log in themselves, and then they actually put in your email address, and you get an email sent, and then you can set up your sort of access level into that account. And so that's a way that parents and family members can have access to provide payment or be able to look at balances and things like that. But those would be the two really important things: FERPA release and then the authorized user. They're two separate things, but both very important for parents and students to talk about prior to coming to campus.
Thanks, Matt. And a question that came in on the chat, I'm trying to watch out of the corner of my eye here, from Tracy. When do students need to apply for loans? Is there a cutoff date for that? So if you want to kind of talk around the loans process a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And so, in your award letter, you'll notice that students, if they've completed the FAFSA, they are typically offered direct student loans, and they're offered a total of $5,500 in direct student loans. And so that's the standard amount a first-year student would receive would receive in their award letter. So at that point, you don't need to accept your loans right away. That is part of their fall 21, spring 22 aid package. And so you can attend our financial aid sessions. You can give financial aid a call. We can walk through a budget scenario with you and talk through that. And so for loans, you typically can choose to accept those loans really any point throughout the year. Note that it can take about 10 days to about 12 days for the loan to be authorized and dispersed onto the student's account. With that too, you don't have to take the full amount of the loan. So if you only want to take $2,200 of the $5,500, you can just take $2,200 of the $5,500 that's been offered to you. And so you have some real flexibility, and you can always go back and ask and take more if you need to, up to that $5,500 mark. So really some flexibility there. And so our team is more than happy, along with financial aid, more than happy to talk with you, have one-on-one appointments, and be able to budget your accounts out for the fall, so you have an idea of maybe what you need to accept, and then get taken care of and dispersed out. There are some steps. So as I said, it can take 10 to 12 days, because typically a student would need to accept their loan in Louis and then complete the master promissory note, which is at studentloans.gov, and then also do the entrance counseling. So there's a few steps for the student to do. And then again, it takes about 10 days for all of those processes that the student does, as well as for the federal government to do, for us to be able to disperse that out on the student's account. In addition to the direct student loans, parents also have the choice of looking, they should on their award letter have information about the Parent Plus loan as well. And so that's another option for parents. And that is a loan in which parents can take out to pay for their students' educational costs. And again, we would be more than happy to talk through those specific scenarios with families and parents by setting up a one-on-one appointment.
Thanks, Matt. We're going to actually circle back to housing. I think I missed a couple of the topics from the survey ahead of time, and then there's been some stuff coming in the chat as well too. So I'm going to throw it back to Alicia for some more housing stuff. If you can talk move-in in terms of timeline on move-in and what we know now, I guess, would be great.
I know, yeah, a lot of families are getting anxious to make some plans, and I fully appreciate that, especially you out of Cedars, or if you have a few different college students, you're trying to arrange travel plans. We completely understand that and appreciate your patience. What I will tell you is how the process generally works, and then we'll firm up some additional details. But we every year do a staggered move-in process just to help with traffic flow and timing and distancing and spacing and all that. We'll continue to do that. How long that move-in window, that's yet to be determined. So we don't know how long we'll stagger that prior to the start of classes. First day of class, August 23rd, right? I believe it's August 23rd. And so our move-in appointments will happen prior to the beginning of classes starting. We always have plenty of move-in appointments. You'll sign up for a move-in appointment through the housing portal. And we have a number of appointments by hall, and again, we stagger those. So everyone has an appointment. We have plenty of more appointments than people to give you that flexibility. So don't worry about that. We just want to put out to you specific information and then have to have you change it. So as we get closer, we can see where things are at. I do know that between, this past year we had a testing requirement, which would minimally be in place, but likely with vaccines, there'll be some combination of, vaccine and or testing depending. So we'll have more details fleshed out as we get closer, and we'll communicate all the requirements in terms of coming in. But know that if you're trying to lock down flights or something like that, I would hold on a little bit longer until we get a little bit more clarity there.
There was a question that came in ahead of time around summer housing. Can students live on campus in the summer? And maybe with this question too, I know it wasn't asked, but what does it look like over winter break? Are students living on campus, or if you could talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, we love the 4 seasons here. We do have students year round in different ways. So first, your general, your academic year contract, that's your August through May. So that's your standard academic year. And in terms of winter break, we usually will have some designated winter downtime halls. So most of our residence halls will close down, card access will be turned off. So we ask you bring, what you need for the break. But if you need to stay here in Flag over the winter break, then we typically will have some number of halls designated for winter housing. And we'll work through the details of moving over to your temporary space if you're not in one of those halls. For summer is a wonderful time to be up in Flagstaff. And so the nice thing is we do have a summer contract, so it's separate than the general year. So you don't have to lock into a 12-month contract in order to live over summer. You can just come. Summer is very flexible. So you can either, if you're taking classes over the summer, or if you're pre-registered for fall and you just want to spend time in Flagstaff and work up here over the summer, or maybe take one, summer session, it's flexible. So we charge by day. And then we do discounted rates over the summer as well. So there's a lot of flexibility. So that is definitely an opportunity.
There was a clarification from Pam that came in right now in the chat around the roommate search portal. We talked about kind of what it was and how that worked. Do you have a timeline for when that actually opens though? Yeah,
we're going to open up the roommate search next week. So right now we're just, because of the adjustments I talked about today, where we are allowing some flexibility with roommates across residential colleges, we had to do some back end adjustments to our housing portal. So we're finishing those up this week. And then next week we'll be rolling out the email once that roommate search opens up. And so you'll know through email, and we'll also have some more information on our website. And then room selection will begin mid-March, around March 15th. And again, that will go all the way through, just ongoing into the summer. And that's based on date of application. So that will be on a rolling basis. All the residential colleges, all students are in that general rolling room selection. So there's not a specific date, say for honors versus other halls. It's just by a date of application. So as you've done that, you've done priority enrollment, you're in the queue to get your room selection time. You'll be sent a specific time, which is your designated start time. So say your time is March 20th at 4 p.m. That would be your start time. And that means you can log in and everything's live real time. And you can select your room then or anytime after that. Sometimes we get questions about, oh, I want, my first choice of a hall is this. And when I logged in, I didn't see any availability there. We're also building in this year a room change process through the portal too. So you could select your room initially, and then if you want to change your room later, you'll be able to go back in and change your room. And we'll have details on that as well. But yeah, that's probably a good summary of the process.
Cool. I think there was a question that came in somewhere around upper division housing.
Yeah, I think someone asked about singles in upper division housing. So if you're a parent of a transfer student, or you're a transfer student, or an upper division student, yeah, if you choose a suite style hall, are typically 4 students per unit. So it's usually 2 bedrooms connected by a bathroom. And we are going to have some, again, single buyout options during room selection for upper division students as well. So if you go into a suite style hall and you want to just have your own room in that unit, you will be able to do that. And then in addition, in our apartment style halls, we already have designated single rooms. So they're designed as singles where they don't have a second set of furniture. And all of our apartment units are going to be 2 per unit moving forward. So you'll either be there's shared bedrooms, like a 1-bedroom apartment shared by 2 students with a kitchen, living room, up to students in individual rooms. So you could have an apartment style where you have 3 or 4 students each in their own single bedroom, but any kind of shared bedroom in the upper division would be 2 students max per bedroom, if that makes sense.
Then I believe there was an iHouse question too that you had.
And someone asked about, yeah, so we have an international house, and someone asked if freshmen can live in an international house. We actually have your freshmen live in freshman halls very specifically because we want to focus on your transition to the college experience. And we front load a lot of resources with the freshman halls to help you do that. There's a smaller, general ratio with RA to student ratio to help provide that support. We have some additional student positions, residential college ambassadors, that kind of thing that work with the freshman students, really to help front load those services to help you kind of get a kickstart to your college career. But certainly after your freshman year, you're more than welcome to apply to live in International House. It's a great community mix of international and domestic students, so very engaging community as well. But there's still obviously lots of opportunities to get involved. If you're interested in learning more about international students or interacting, there's definitely a lot of student clubs and organizations that you can join your freshman year. So you're not limited that way. We encourage you to explore that. So there are a lot of study abroad opportunities for during your college career. So a lot of great things that you can get involved with.
Cool. I think we caught up on all the housing ones we had missed and had come in through the chat there. Shifting gears a little bit to transportation and campus visits and all of that. And I know Lindsay in the chat just said, is there a student parking fee? So Matt, can you talk a little bit about parking on campus?
I can. And so first, you'll notice we do have a transportation fee that is added to students' account. And that transportation fee is $75, and it covers our shuttle system, our pedway system, and a number of you know, our bike racks, our yellow bike program, a number of things that support transportation across the campus, right? And so for students living on campus, I will tell you that we already have a robust transportation system between our buses and our pedways, and you can easily walk through campus, take a bus on campus. And so you have those available to you, as well as we have a really great partnership with the city and with our bus system in the city. And so we have some routes that actually run through campus as well, that students can take to get to Walmart off campus and in downtown. So a lot of nice partnerships there to provide good transportation for students. And so I would add that if you do bring a car to campus, we do have a parking permit fee. You don't actually get a physical permit. Well, if you're in the garages, you do. But if you're not in the garages, you don't actually get a physical permit anymore. We use license plates as the permit. And so for a full year right now, for a student to actually park in one of our open lots, which are lots that are typically pretty close to the residence hall. So we have different zones based on what residence hall you're in. It is $470 per year. And that is for the fall 20 spring or the 2021 year. And so the new prices for 21, 22 are not out yet, but for at least 2021, it's $470 a year to park in one of our open lots. And then if you choose to park into one of our covered garages, which we have 2 on Central Campus and 1 near South Campus next to the Suites in Gabaldon, that is $640 a year. And so students can choose based on where they're living, what lot or what lots they would like to park their vehicle in, but because it really doesn't provide flexibility. So you can't really drive around campus if you want to drive to class or whatever. It's really about having a spot close to your residence hall that you can park your car in and get to your residence hall. And so because we have a great bus system and a great pedway system, you can get around campus, usually from north to south, walking within 15 minutes, and on a bus, even less. So it's a pretty quick commute across campus.
Yeah, I would definitely say a car is more of a luxury than a necessity. Like Matt said, you're not driving to the door of your class or anything like that. It's more getting to and from campus, which that was one of the questions that came in ahead of time in the survey. What are transportation options for students getting to and from the Phoenix Airport from campus? And there are a couple different options there. There's a private company, Groom Transportation, that picks up right here on campus and drops students right at the Phoenix Airport. Flix Bus is another option that gets you to Phoenix. I believe they also go down to Tucson, go to Vegas, California, I believe, even from Flagstaff. And we do have Amtrak that comes through. That's not going to get you to the Phoenix Airport, but just as I talk through kind of transportation to and from Flagstaff, you could hop on Amtrak. And then we do have a regional airport here in Flagstaff, and many students are choosing to fly in and out of Flagstaff rather than going down to Phoenix. Your options out of Flagstaff, you can fly down to Phoenix and then make your connection. And currently we also have Denver, Colorado, and then Dallas, Texas as flights out of Flagstaff. And it's a one terminal, one gate kind of set up there, and quick and easy to get through that and not too far away from campus. One other option, I guess, in the getting to and from Phoenix part, there are rideshare boards that take place on, I believe on Facebook currently. There's a group there where maybe you pay for gas and somebody else that has a car can give you a ride down there. So those are a few options that come to mind. Then kind of the last couple of questions that I want to hit on here that had come in ahead of time were visiting campus. And, I realize that's a big part of the college decision process is actually kind of setting foot on a campus and realizing that here we're, a year into this pandemic and many students maybe haven't had the chance to set foot on a campus that they're considering. So a few different things I want to talk through. First of all, virtual options. If you haven't checked out yet, nau.edu/virtual. There's a big button on the NAU homepage as well to take you there. We do have a virtual campus tour experience there where you can kind of feel like you're moving through campus. We even have a lumberjack country one that shows some of the areas around Flagstaff and around Northern Arizona. So that's an option. We do have our campus visit presentations via livecast, I guess. We have it every single Monday through Friday at 3 p.m. Flagstaff time, and then every Tuesday and Wednesday at 7 p.m. Flagstaff time. So if you want to see a typical campus visit presentation, that being said, we've had a bunch of Discover NAU events virtually in this YouTube page that you're on right now. You could check out one of those Discover NAU events and get a good overview. And we did our best as we could through videos and all of that to help your students get the feel for NAU. All that being said, if your student and you as a family end up in Flagstaff, our Admissions Welcome Center is open Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 p.m. And we are sitting down with families in a socially distanced way. If you went out in our lobby right now outside my office, the furniture is really spread out. We've got different sections of furniture to be able to sit down and meet with families and answer questions for families that do find their way to campus. When you show up, we also can give you self-guided tours. We have a podcast available that families can listen to at the different stops to hear some of what would be shared by one of our tour guides at those different stops. So that's an option for you. You can also find that self-guided tour on that nau.edu/virtual webpage that I mentioned. About halfway down the page or near the bottom, you'll find that. So if you're maybe want to print that out ahead of time before you get to campus and you're coming in on a weekend, that could be a good option for you. We are available to meet one-on-one virtually in addition to the in-person in the office piece. So certainly reach out to your admissions officer. If you don't know who that is, email our general admissions@nau.edu email address, and we'll connect you with somebody for a Zoom meeting or a phone call to be able to discuss any questions that may be more kind of personal to you and maybe you didn't want to share in this public space. We're here to help you navigate this process and be able to understand as best as possible in this virtual space your options and if NAU is the right fit for your family and for your student. So certainly appreciate you taking the time to listen to us tonight, and that alone shows how invested you are in your student and how much you care about their success. So certainly thankful for you taking this time, and we're going to continue to offer lots of opportunities like this, parent chats like this. I mentioned earlier that forecast from Flagstaff that kind of show that will start up. Matt mentioned the webinars on financial aid that'll be taking place this summer. We've got some housing ones scheduled as well. So lots of opportunities. You'll all be experts and be able to be sitting in our chairs by the end of the summer if you keep showing up at these. But yeah, certainly appreciate you taking the time, and we look forward to continuing to connect in the days, weeks, and months ahead. All right, take care, everybody. Stay safe, stay healthy.